Good afternoon and welcome to Expert Talks on Kalkine TV. I'm your host, Rose Jacobs. This is where we chat to industry leaders and experts in an effort to inspire you to make the most of your own financial investments. Today we're exploring the topic of taboos in the workplace around gender and sexuality. Gender is not binary, nor is sexuality. However, many of us have been taught otherwise. So, to come out of such taboos, today we have a special guest on our show, Brett Hayhoe, who will enlighten us with his current thoughts on the scenario of queer communities in Australian workplaces. Brett Hayhoe is the publisher and editor at Q Magazine. He's also the Chief Executive Officer at Queerfriendly. Hi Brett, and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Rose. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure to have you with us today. Now, Brett, I'd like to start, if you could give us an overview, really in your own words, about Q Magazine and what you aim to achieve.
Well, Q Magazine started in 2004, so I guess whatever we want to achieve, we probably should have by now. But the magazine, we identified that there was a gap in the market for a good quality publication that was not overtly gay, and I will explain that. It's not about naked bodies or gay imagery. It's about the places and faces that make Melbourne and Australia wonderful, and also lifestyle of the LGBT community. Now, of course, our lifestyle is very, very broad. We do everything. So the magazine has been filled with some wonderful articles over the 16 years, and in 2006 we went fully digital. It's always had a digital footprint, but in 2016, I decided that printing was just way too expensive, and so if I wanted to keep the magazine, then I had to stop with the silly notion that people liked up paper and roll it. And,
I'm guilty of that.
A terrible traditionalist. And
it's not always affordable, though, as you've pointed out. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not. And on a business level, financially, it did hurt me by not printing it. But that's starting to come back. But of course, the costs are almost nil. So it's a give and take.
Well, it sounds like you've progressed very well with the times in terms of the printing and the affordability, and you certainly sound like a very unique production, which is wonderful. So I guess let's start with the questions. Unfortunately, the world as a whole hasn't ultimately come out of some of those stereotypical notions attached to the queer community. However, people like you are really making a significant impact in changing our society's perspectives with your publication. So, as a person who's exclusively working on this, what changes have you observed in the Australian culture concerning the understanding of this queer community life?
Look, I think it's probably pertinent to understand that some stereotypes about the LGBT community are true. Generally, if you get your hair cut by a really good hairdresser, they're generally gay. And if you want your house to look absolutely stunning, get a gay interior designer, because they really are better than the others. But in regard to changes, look, I think people have been slowly but methodically pushed into understanding that we are all the same. Gay people just happen to be attracted to people of their same sex and gender, and so, but I don't think you go to, I don't think you will find every jurisdiction in the world welcoming to the LGBT community, and that's sad, but it's a reality. Not all communities accept others, but in Australia we've had some amazing movements forward in the political sphere. Gay conversion therapy, for example, is outlawed in at least 3 states that I know of. Queensland, New South Wales as well. Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia. I may be wrong, there may be some others, but certainly the east coast of the country has made that illegal. We worked very, very hard, everybody in the LGBT community in Victoria, to get that legislation through. Gay conversion therapy is simply barbaric and should never, ever even be thought of as a form of practice. And I think those sorts of things make other people understand that the community in general is changing.
I'd also like to tap into your perspective from a media point of view. In my experience, the media can be incredibly influential in influencing public opinion. So you're in a very unique position in that you are creating a publication here now digitally where we can start to build that queer-friendly space for organisations or individuals. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely, and I think it's important also. Every community has its quirks and its nuances. I'm not sure that they need to be thrown down everybody's throat. Where the gay media, such as Q Magazine, comes into the fore, is that nothing in my publication should be confronting, but everything is unashamedly about, for, and from the LGBT community. And I think that, I hate to use the word normalize. I'm also certainly not an assimilationist. Not at the peril of a community, but I think everybody who shows LGBT people in a very, again, I hate using the word normal because I really hate the word, but there's no other word to use. Look, we've seen it in film and television over the years, where instead of a gay character just being an added extra, we've seen the character being very pivotal and just so happens to be gay. They're the sorts of things that change hearts and minds in all societies across the world.
Actually, as a side point, I noticed in the news this week that the print version of Spider-Man has now been diversified to be a bisexual, which is quite fascinating.
I always thought it anyway.
Now, I'd like to move on. Diverse sexualities are widely and now legally and socially accepted in the mainstream, in Australia at least, and more people are coming out with their honest sexual orientation. So I'd like to know your thoughts on how industries and marketplaces can proceed towards better catering for that.
It's very interesting you say that, because attached to gayfriendly.com, which is a website based out of the UK, is also an organisation that I am a consultant for, which is Pride 365. Pride 365, as the name would suggest, means that you should be proud of who you are, regardless of what that happens to be, 365 days a year, but also that as a business, you should be supporting your LGBT staff 365 days a year, not just conveniently during June, for example, which is the North American Pride season. The month is Pride Month. So Pride 365 works very, very closely with business. They go into the organization from the bottom up and look at everything that should be changed and make sure that those changes, all be them incremental over a 12-month period, as long as those changes are being made, Pride 365 are there with those businesses. I really strongly support that concept for all business, all organizations. You may not be 100% perfect right now, but as long as you're willing to change, I don't think that's a bad thing. The main thing about Pride 365 is a public pledge to do better, to be better, and to be more inclusive, and that's really all we can ask people to do. And businesses, I think, are hopping on board.
It sounds like a wonderful organisation. Now, as you mentioned, you do use sometimes exciting, perhaps provocative, but classy, definitely humorous and often timeless photographs or illustrations, and also witty features in your magazine editions. What would you say your inspiration is behind such imagery and the messages that you intend to send to your readers?
Look, certainly on an imagery basis, I think people need to have a bit of fun. I live in Melbourne, by the way, so I haven't had too much fun over the last 2 years.
Yes.
However, I have to say that not only have we broken through the shackles today, it's also one of the hottest days we have had in 2 years, which is why I'm wearing a t-shirt. I'm so sorry, I normally wear a suit. But
I actually love the heart.
Melbourne,
It's beautiful.
Well, it's a Fiat Montreal, which is Montreal Pride.
Fantastic.
And I've forgotten exactly what we were talking about.
Well, just in terms of the imagery that you do utilize, you know,
Yes,
what is the ultimate message that you intend to send to your readers with that?
Well, on a very basic level, because it's a magazine format, having a magazine full of words without any imagery would be really boring. It would bore me putting it together. I design it as well. But look, I think the message is very much that the community is is an integral part of the overall community, every citizenry, whether people like it or not. And President Erdogan, of course, made some stupid comment many years ago, several years ago, that there were no gay people in Turkey. I said, I've got news for you, baby, and it's all bad. There are gay people in every society, and so there should be. There's also people who do knitting. There is also people who do shooting and fishing, and you know, there are. Our community is made up of many communities, and the imagery. I don't know that there's a deliberate reason to change anybody's hearts or minds, but they're always fun imagery, and sometimes a little naughty. But you'll never ever see in Q magazine anything that's blatantly rude or yes, exactly. But please don't look at the second issue.
Now I must buy a copy.
That got somebody fired. That got somebody
just for
fired.
our final question, in your opinion, which industry or area in Australia is really the most queer friendly, and what's the rationale, or where's the success behind that? I know you mentioned you're from Melbourne, so I'm guessing that's going to be part of the response from you.
Well, I read this question, and thank you for sending them through. I read this question, and I'm not quite sure that there is one industry or one area that is better than another. I think look, obviously there are very obvious ones, like the airline industry has under the current chief executive officer has gone a long way to welcoming all of his employees. I have to say, by the way, that under former chiefs, and I'm sure this one as well, that the Victoria Police are very welcoming of gay people, and also their interaction with the gay community is exceptional. And that's not by accident. That's by a bunch of people who go in there and train the cadets on diversity, inclusion, acceptance. Tolerance is a terrible word and should never be used. Acceptance, most definitely, and how to deal with people from different backgrounds, different sexualities, and so I would have to give a shout out to the Victoria Police. I think they've come a long way. They're by no means perfect, please don't misunderstand me, and they have a very long way to go. But take out the last 2 years, which has just been stupid. The last 2 years have just been stupid, but leading on from here and picking up from where they left off 2 years ago, I really think they're a wonderful organisation.
And certainly one to keep an eye on moving forward. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to chat with you
Rose, my absolute
soon.
pleasure. I hope so too. Thank you very much.
Indeed. I'm Rose Jacobs, and you've been watching Expert Talks for Kalkine TV. Stay tuned, plenty more coming right up.